Hey guys, it's Logan here with Hydra 572, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Leatherman OHT. This is a relatively new and, in my opinion, underpublicized multi-tool from Leatherman. I already have two videos on it, a first impressions and a video showing some usage. The links to those will be in the description. First off, I'd like to point out just how large of a multi-tool this is. I don't know if that comes across when it's just in hand like this, because I could have any size hands. So here is the Leatherman Juice for comparison. This is, first off, it's reflecting right into my camera. Second off, it is what most people would consider to be a medium-small multi-tool. And there you can see the size comparison. Thinner, shorter, a little bit less wide, quite a bit less wide actually. This is a very large and correspondingly relatively heavy multi-tool. At the risk of repeating myself from previous videos, now I'll do a little tool overview so that we're all familiar with what's on board. Starting with the main feature of most multi-tools, the pliers. And as you guys can see, that is not the normal deployment method for pliers in a multi-tool. Normally we have, just like on the Juice, fold out the handles, now you have the pliers. And here we have a design that was patented by Gerber, or copyrighted, or whatever. It was legally held by Gerber, and it is no longer exclusively theirs, so Leatherman got into that market. You can open it with one hand pretty easily. You just slide that forward. To release it, you have a button here on both sides. You squeeze, and you pull down in, and there you go. We have a lock here on the other side. Now it won't open. Unlock, and you can just, can't do it from behind the camera, but it is relatively easy in real life to just, like that, drop open the pliers. Now you can get to whatever you're doing. If you're holding a cable that needs to be cut, I suppose it would be a pretty big utility to just slip the pliers on out, cable cut. So, moving on to the plier head, something that had to be pointed out to me about a number of plier heads is we tend to make them too big in each dimension. I'm not really convinced that this plier head needed to be this size. I'm talking about metal thickness in this dimension, metal thickness in this dimension. Just the general taper, I think you could have less metal there, which would give you more maneuverability to get into a tight space, because as it stands, I'm pretty sure that my hand isn't as strong as this pivot point is, and that this pivot point isn't as strong as the metal of the individual plier heads is. Also, if we thin the plier head a little bit in this dimension, we can thin the entire tool in this dimension, and then it might be a little bit more comfortable, a little bit less blocky, a little bit less bulky. However, the plier head as it stands is a good all-purpose utility plier. As you guys saw in the usage video, the replaceable 154 cm cutters aren't great wire cutters. The hard wire cutter is fine. You can cut nails and whatnot with it, and anything that's difficult to cut you can really get in that little itty-bitty circular maw back there, and you guys can see how clean I keep this thing, but there is a little circular hole letting through light there, and I did cut some thin nails and whatnot. That did very well. The wire cutters themselves, however, needed a couple goes at different pieces of wire. They are relatively large, relatively blunt cutting edges, as you guys can see there. That is the cutting face. So they're not very decisive wire cutters. Overall, if you're an electrician looking for, I don't know why you'd want a multi-tool to be cutting and stripping wire with, but this is not what I would choose. Just not great for that. So there's the plier head. Moving on, all of the other tools that we have are locking. I'll start here because it's easy to do. Here we have a rescue cutter, and in the usage, I'm not sure how much I showed of that. It is a little bit difficult to use. We have a screwdriver here on top, but ultimately, if you're trying to save someone from being trapped somewhere, if you need to cut their seatbelt or if you need to cut their clothing, I think you'd be better off using that's the saw, using the serrated knife that's included right here on the other side with a blunt tip so that you could use it for rescue type stuff if you had to get down under a seatbelt under someone's clothes without cutting them. I do prefer multi-tools that have a dedicated serrated blade as well as a dedicated straight blade as opposed to doing partial serrations. And both of these are short but overall pretty good blades. The straight edge blade in particular I've been using for some woodworking since the usage video, and I've really been enjoying using it. And as I said, if I'm going to have serrations, just in case I'm cutting fibrous material, cutting rope, a whole lot of cardboard, I would prefer it to be a dedicated complete other blade. These are 420 high carbon blades, and they cut, what steel should I liken them to? Sort of like a harder side AUS 8. So they're not super steels, they're not S30V, they're not 154cm or D2, but they do hold an edge for a decent long time. As you guys can see there, relative to the handle, that is not a very large blade. And that is because we have relatively large locking screwdrivers on the other side, and a can opener in this case that would impinge from them going full length. I would, however, prefer a little bit shorter of a shaft on the screwdrivers and other tools so that we could have a little bit more blade. So as I said, this is a very large tool with a small blade, which is not what we want. So decent knives all around, and then as you guys saw, we do have a saw. And this is a pretty good multi-tool saw. Then we have our screwdrivers. There we have our large flathead, relatively short, pretty stout. A smaller flathead, and then I guess our medium flathead is there on the tip of the rescue cutter. And then we have one Phillips, which is longer than the others because the rescue cutter didn't need to be very long, and it is a good general size, all-purpose Phillips head driver. And that is all the tools. Not a whole lot of tools on a very large multi-tool here. Lots of space taken up by the internal mechanisms of the one-handed opening design. Conspicuously absent tools, I'm sure some would say they want an all. I don't really need one in my multi-tool. Some would say that they want scissors, and I've wished that this thing did have a nice pair of scissors in use before, especially if we could substitute out the rescue cutter, which I just don't see a use for next to this perfectly designed rescue serrated knife. I'm not sure. As far as scissors, I do carry this thing with my Leatherman style PS almost all the time. This little thing is always a part of my EDC, and so I'm not really in need of scissors. I carry it with a knife as well. I'm sure that most people who want to carry a multi-tool like this already have an EDC blade. Some of you might not be carrying something little like this, and you should be. So, other than that, conspicuously absent tools, well, there is no bottle opener. We do have the can opener, and you can finagle it around and get a cap off of a bottle. It's not as easy as I would like it to be, but it does work pretty much every time. The can opener is decent. I wouldn't say it's as good as a Victorinox can opener, but it gets the job done, and if you're opening your can with a multi-tool, that's probably all you can ask for. Also, possibly conspicuously absent, a good file like we see here on the Juice, both sides and the bottom ground, with some general purpose, finer and more coarse grit for both wood and metal type files. The bottom ground so that we can do notching in metal. A good file would not go amiss, even if it was short here in place of the rescue cutter. I think that would be a positive contribution as well. Moving on to the hardware really quickly, as you guys can see, those are Torx, but there are the variety of Torx that have a small peg in the middle. Might be an issue for some people. I've found that you should not adjust any of the tensions on any of the screws in any Leatherman, ever. Really, when I've tensioned these things incorrectly, like on my Skeletool, I never got them back to the state that they came from the factory. They tend not to loosen up. Leatherman's pretty good about that. They have, at least in other multi-tools, these do appear to be simpler. They have a pretty complex barrel design, and the tension across various different sides matters a whole lot, and I just wasn't able to get it back to a way that I wanted it. Perhaps this is to deter people from getting in there and dicking around with their tools. Not sure. A relatively cheap set of Torx wrenches that I bought at a Lowe's or Home Depot had that little peg cut out of them, so I could loosen and tighten this if I wanted to. So, one thing that I forgot. There, as you guys see below the actuation lever, is a small hole. You guys can't see the threads that are tapped in there, and you can screw in a cleaning rod for a rifle or a pistol. As I said in the usage video, however, though, this doesn't allow the way that most cleaning rod handles do. This doesn't allow for native spin of the brush, so if you wanted to spin the brush with the rifling, you're going to have to spin the OHT to spin the brush to spin with the rifling, and that's too bad. But again, I'm not sure what situation would lead to you having a cleaning rod and not having a handle for that cleaning rod, but if such a situation presented itself, I might be happy that I was getting to clean my rifle or pistol at all. Not sure why you wouldn't just be able to, like with an AR-15, break it up and then pull the brush through and then allow that twist with your fingers, but overall, I'm just taking this as a sign of Leatherman acknowledging that they want to use space on the knife. or multi-tool. So overall, that's not a negative thing because it doesn't take up any space. As you guys can see, we have little pictures of whatever tool is there, so that looks sort of like a straight-bladed knife, I suppose, and that corresponds to where the straight-bladed knife is. I imagine that's a stylistic choice, and I do think it looks pretty good, and it allows you to see the tools on an otherwise symmetrical and difficult to identify which tool is which type of multi-tool. As I said, the cutters are 154 cm, the blades are 420 high carbon. People tend to not like 420 HC because they associate it with 420, which is a bad steel. 420 high carbon, however, tends not to be. These things go for like $85 on eBay, like $78 on Amazon. Back when I got mine, I got it for a little less. I imagine if you really hunted around, you could get it for a little less as well. As you guys can see, I have the Coyote Brown version, which I feel like is the more attractive version. They offer it in all black as well. Not sure why we don't have an OD green, but I like the option to go with this, and I did go with it. They also include a sheath because for some people's systems, this might be too big to carry in a pocket. I tend to carry it in a cargo pocket or in a back pocket, but you might want to use the sheath. Overall, it's a relatively high quality sheath. Nice Velcro. We have a little moly strip. You can put this on a belt pretty easy using the moly, or I suppose you could work it onto your chest rig if you wanted to. And yeah, you guys know how all that works. I won't try to fumble with it from behind the camera. We have a little eyelet for draining, and the Velcro is high quality. So overall, the Leatherman OHT, the tools that you need and what size constraints and price constraints you're willing to work with should really govern your multi-tool choices. But this is a cool tool with a cool deployment method for the pliers. You can do it with one hand, whereas like on our Leatherman Juice, if you want to do this with one hand, you're not up shit's creek, but you're not far from there. You're kind of doing this sort of thing, and it's not very quick, not very elegant. It is doable, as you guys will see me struggle to do. That's the sort of thing that you're going to do on other multi-tools if you want to open them with one hand. Competitive options, well, like I said, size constraints, I suppose weight constraints, and what tools you want. Me, I don't need a whole mess of tools on my multi-tool to be happy. Like I said, I don't even really need the rescue cutter. I wish it was replaced with something, whether it be scissors. I would even go for a short pair of scissors here. But overall, we have a knife with a really good lockup as far as Leatherman multi-tools go. We have a saw, which, again, a really good lockup, very functional saw. We have a couple of screwdrivers, and then we have, if we're going to have serrations on a multi-tool, I prefer it to be like this, a separate serrated blade, and a very well designed one at that. So overall, is this the perfect tool for you? If you're not worried about size and you want to be able to open with one hand, you want a little bit of extra cool factor from the way that this thing looks, I do think it is a very attractive multi-tool. Some people are going to think it's blocky and stupid looking. Besides that, if you're really needing great wire cutting capability, probably not. Maybe the knife is too small for you. I don't know. I don't want to make up reasons for you not to purchase this tool because I do think it is a really cool tool. I use it in my EDC very, very frequently. But it is not the tool for everyone, and I do intend to check out some other Leatherman multi-tools. I would prefer something a little bit bigger than the Juice size category and a little bit more expensive than the Wingman that I've reviewed before, because I would prefer to have locking tools. That is one thing that I like about the OHT, is every tool locks. You don't have to be afraid that you're going to be torquing on a small screw or whatever, and then the screwdriver is going to close up on your hand. Of course, the knives and saws should be locking as well. Overall, a very cool tool, in my opinion. You're going to have to make the decision for yourself whether it is the one for you. It is larger than most people will want to integrate into their systems. I've said always that I'm not really worried about size and weight because a big element of most people's EDC, the pistol, is absent from my EDC, so I don't need to worry about that weight, don't need to worry about that size, so I have some more space to integrate some larger stuff. Do you get some extra leverage on the plier head from the large handles? Yeah, I think so. Is it an uncomfortable multi-tool? Well, not really. It feels blocky, it has some sharp edges, but I've used it long term, and it didn't make me any more sore than any other multi-tools. I still haven't seen the truly ergonomic multi-tool. at least not in the full-size market. Even something this size, I don't know. This just isn't the optimal design for a plier handle. They don't make pliers that have a whole bunch of other tools shoved in the handles in a one-piece intended use plier, and there's a reason for that. It's difficult to make that sort of arrangement comfortable. However, it didn't wear on my hand too bad. I did notice hot spots when I was using various tools using the plier head. You guys saw all of that in the usage video. However, overall, for such a large multi-tool, the tools it packs, I think it narrowly squeaks by with a recommendation as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, I very much enjoy it. I like larger multi-tools. I like sort of having a weird cool factor about the stuff that I carry. I like being unique and not carrying the same things that everybody else carries. I'm sure there are some of you out there like that too. If you are, check out the Leatherman OHT. If not, there are a slew of other multi-tool offerings from Leatherman, as well as the competitive options from Gerber, SOG. Actually, that's it. Pretty much Leatherman, Gerber, and SOG. And actually, pretty much just Leatherman, in all honesty. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my ramblings in this video. It's difficult for me to do a multi-tool review without rambling because there's no easy way to format these things. So, overall general tool review, satisfaction with the thing, overall feel and coherency, and not a general purpose recommendation, but with the qualifiers that I said, if you think you can fit this thing into your system, the Leatherman OHT is a cool, I was going to say cool little tool. It's a cool large tool. So if you're a little bit still wanting some information, check out the usage video, maybe check out the first impressions. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more of the same.